The beauty trends that sweep social media and magazines are constantly evolving. Many of us can think back to some of the odd products we've purchased and have a good laugh. It's no secret beauty companies seem to always be pushing the next big thing, and millions buy into this. Today, the global beauty industry is valued at $511 billion. One key player is new technology. Each year, Americans spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on new tech driven treatments, from microneedling to at home red light therapy. Another fairly recent development is skin lasers, which hit the market in 2004 and haven't lost any popularity since. So, how do they work?
So they actually cause microscopic injury to the skin. So like they make tiny little burns in the skin, and that is supposed to stimulate collagen. So they're used for like not only scars, but wrinkle treatments and tightening and firming.
That's Dr. Kristen Rojas, a board certified gynecologist and breast cancer surgeon at the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center at the University of Miami. She says companies have redesigned these topical skin lasers in a way where they can now be inserted into a vagina for a type of treatment called vaginal rejuvenation.
They're trying to use these devices to treat what's known as genitourinary syndrome of menopause, which is actually a condition where with menopause, when the ovaries stop making estrogen, the level of estrogen in your body goes really low, and then the tissues of the vulva and the vagina are really sensitive to those low levels, and so the vagina can become dry and less elastic or less stretchy, and this can lead to painful effects and increased urinary tract infections. And so these lasers have been repurposed and are now being marketed as a tool or a treatment that helps patients with these symptoms that go along with menopause.
Which sounds like a good thing, except Rojas says there's no concrete evidence that these lasers help to actually relieve any of those symptoms. In fact, it may be worsening the issues. Rojas says about 75% of her patients that have had this treatment end up with more pain and problems than before.
I run this program called MUSIC, which stands for Menopause, Urogenital, Sexual Health, and Intimacy Clinic, and it's dedicated to helping women who are experiencing sexual side effects from treatment, which are actually really common but not often talked about. And so in this program, which is essentially a clinic with one-on-one doctor's visits, I've talked a lot to patients and learned about their experiences and how they feel like routine treatments are not available to them because of their cancer diagnosis. They're living in constant fear of a cancer recurrence, and they're vulnerable.
Unfortunately, Rojas says breast cancer patients tend to be a target for these companies because of the known side effects of their cancer medications.
What we do is we give them a medication to decrease the amount of estrogen in their body or to block the estrogen receptor. And these medications are really important because they significantly decrease the risk of the breast cancer coming back or recurring. The problem is that they often cause side effects which are a worsening of menopausal symptoms. So hot flashes, vaginal dryness, painful sex, low desire. And the issue is these symptoms not only impact patients in the menopausal range, so older than 50, but we're putting younger patients into this induced menopause, so patients in their 30s and 40s, which is way before the natural age of menopause. And so I think those patients are really particularly affected by these symptoms.
One of these patients is Nancy, who would like to go by just her first name in this story. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2004 and underwent chemotherapy and a double mastectomy. She'd been using a cream to help with her symptoms, but then a friend mentioned her wonderful experience with a popular device called the Mona Lisa Touch. After hearing great things about the doctor performing the treatment, Nancy made an appointment.
And he put the instrument up, and it felt like rubber bands kind of hitting against your insides. It was uncomfortable, bearable. I think it brought tears to my eyes.
But the pain didn't end there. After her session finished,
You immediately have to go to the bathroom. And the pain of going to the bathroom immediately was like swallowing glass or something. It was just so horrible and painful. I think I crawled out of his office, and he'd say, "You can't crawl out of my office. You'll scare the customers away."
Rojas says Nancy's not alone in her search to ease the effects of cancer medication. Women naturally going through menopause can use estrogen creams to get rid of negative symptoms. However, doctors advise breast cancer patients to stay away from estrogen products.
Oftentimes, we have counseled them to avoid estrogen products at all costs, even though there's not actually evidence out there that vaginal estrogen increases the risk of recurrence in these patients. They're appropriately cautious and oftentimes are looking for other treatments other than the standard, which is vaginal estrogen.
In effect, many patients turn to laser treatments, which usually aren't covered by insurance. So people like Nancy are sometimes paying thousands of dollars out of pocket for something that ends up causing more harm than good.
The Mona Lisa did not work. It was painful, and I did spend a lot of money on it. I hoped it would help reduce pain, and I'm mad at myself. I'm surprised at myself because being an RN, I thought I was smarter than this, but I'm not.
A sentiment so many of Rojas's patients share, which is why her biggest complaint with vaginal rejuvenation lasers is that she says they aren't actually FDA approved for what they're marketed as.
These devices were never FDA approved to be used in the vagina. The way that the manufacturers register these devices is through a process called 501(k), where the manufacturers have to prove that the technology is similar to something that has already been approved by the FDA, called a predicate. And because these aren't implanted devices like a breast implant, the FDA doesn't have to do a lot of digging into the safety or even efficacy of these lasers.
In 2018, the FDA sent a letter to Cynosure, the company behind the Mona Lisa touch. It listed a few claims by the company that their approval didn't cover. Claims like Mona Lisa touch is a simple, safe, and clinically proven laser treatment for the painful symptoms of menopause, including intimacy. The letter also mentions that part of the applicator has been modified from the previously approved device. As of yet, notices like this one are the only repercussions these companies are receiving.
I want to raise, first and foremost, awareness about this so that patients can be educated consumers and be able to do their own research and be able to ask the appropriate questions. My second goal is for the FDA to take a stronger stance on regulating these devices.
Part of Rojas's research came from the FDA database MAUDE, which stands for Manufacturer and User Facility Device Experience. If you've had a negative experience with a medical device, you can submit a report to this database to help share your experience with people that may be considering the same device. You can find out more information about Dr. Kristen Rojas and all of our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. For more behind the scenes, search Radio Health Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farah. Our production manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Nancy Benson. Coming up next week on Radio Health Journal.
Not everybody is ready for a transformative life change, so we want to make sure everybody has access to the information and resources that they need to be safe and healthy.
How a historic focus on harm reduction can save lives.
Then, how implicit bias and racial discrimination amongst healthcare providers results in poor quality of care for people of color.
It's unfortunate that a person of color would feel inferior or feel they are not there.
All that and more on Radio Health Journal. I'm Reed Pence, the producer and host of Radio Health Journal. If you like listening to Radio Health Journal, you'll also like our sister show, Viewpoints, which covers a wide array of topics from education to history to the environment. Here's a preview of what they're covering this week on Viewpoints.
We don't have any FDA-approved medications for cocaine or for methamphetamine or for cannabis.
The difficult task of finding effective treatments for addiction. Then,
we think of JFK and we think of RFK. We think of the Kennedys of the past and the roles that they played and the tragedies that they've faced.
Uncovering the Kennedys you've heard little about. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth this week on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
Listen to Radio Health Journal and Viewpoints on your favorite radio station. And subscribe and listen anytime on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Radio Health Journal.
And that's Radio Health Journal for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more. And check Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify for a library of past programs. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and information about our guests at radiohealthjournal.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Radio Health Journal.